Hello and welcome to this multimedia series on the environment on CNC3. I'm Ira Mathur. Today we're talking about our landfills, also known as dumps by some. Last week we took a CNC3 and Guardian crew to the Beetham or Labas landfill. Let's take a look at some of the images our cameraman CNC3's Joel Alec took when we were out there. Labas, in the pouring rain. There are 4 landfill sites in Trinidad, 3 of which are managed and operated by the Solid Waste Company of Trinidad and Tobago. The landfills are in Guanapo in the east, Forest Park in the south, and Beetham in the north. The Solid Waste Management website says that the Beetham and Guanapo sites are major concerns as they are located in areas that are not suitable for landfill operations. The Beetham landfill is too close to the capital city of Port of Spain and the highly urbanized east-west corridor. It may be polluting the ecosystems of the Laventille and Caroni swamps and poisoning our produce and water table. The average person, that is you and I, generate approximately 4 pounds of waste per day. Collectively, we dump 1,000 tons of waste on landfill sites every day. This does not include the litter, plastics and metal that pollute our streets, drains, rivers, beaches and other environs. This is serious stuff. If Solid Waste, a government-run company, has not been able to do anything about the health hazard posed by our landfills, then who can? Their website, which sounds like a plea for help, says the Guanapo landfill is operating at close to capacity and will not last more than 1 or 2 years at the present input rate. The Beetham landfill is in a similar state. To tell us more, my guests today are Alan de Beaumle, Waste Disposals Limited. Thank you so much for being here. And Mr. Albion Scott, the Executive Manager of the environmental project Solid Waste Management Company Limited. Gentlemen, thank you so much for coming on.
Good afternoon. Thank you.
Let's start with the person nearest me. Alan, you called yourself a seasoned garbiologist. I've never heard that term before. I presume you've coined it yourself.
Yeah.
What exactly do you do?
Yeah, it was first coined by my father. He calls himself a garbologist, and I suppose I have followed in those footsteps. We are in the business of managing waste, but basically in terms of containment, where our business is where we rent equipment to our customers, and we then service that equipment depending on the requirement of the customer. Or in a simple scenario, let's say you have a small business and you need a bin. We'll put a bin and we'll service that bin maybe once a week. On the other end, you may be a large supermarket and we need to put a big trash compactor at your site and we would service that compactor 3 times a week. So, and everything in between. Okay. So that's what we do. We're a waste management contractor.
Mr. Scott, 1,000 tons of garbage transported to our landfills. You're responsible for all of this. Can you tell us of the logistics that goes into something like this?
Well, ideally, what happens is there are several types of contractors that bring waste to our landfill. There's the private mom and pop who works with a small truck. There are the commercial contractors like Waste Disposals Limited, quite a few of them. And then you have the municipal contractors. These are contractors who work solely for the municipal corporations. They have different days on which they collect, and the volumes that we get on a daily basis is a mixture of private, commercial, and residential, which is regional corporation waste that we get. You have commercial waste, which comes from the city of Port of Spain and other urban areas. You have the residential waste that comes from the suburban areas of Port of Spain and also those areas outside of Port of Spain. You also have, coming out of many of these regions, something called cuttings, which is the cuttings from trees, brush, and cleaning of yards, etc. And in addition to that, you also have something called white waste. These types of waste, there are many varieties of waste that come to the landfill on a given day, out of that 1,000 tons, or the case may be. And in addition to that, we have cases where we have special types of waste that also come to the landfill for burial because they cannot go on the tipping phase. They're not permitted to go on the tipping phase. These are things like canned foods that are condemned, meats, and other types of items which need to be buried and cannot be put onto the tipping phase. What goes on the tipping phase is mainly residential waste, some commercial waste, etc. We also do get some industrial waste, which is from construction, but that has turned out to be a very limited amount because most of it is losing landfilling, other types of landfilling in Trinidad, which is along the coast, etc.
Your website has said that, 2 of our landfills are now up to capacity. What I want to ask you is now, do our landfills currently meet acceptable international standards? We were there last week and we saw that it really looked like a huge mess.
Okay. It depends on how you define international standards. I will not say that we are the international standard of, which is a second generation landfill where you're putting a liner, the leachate is properly collected. You must remember that both Beetham and Guanapo started off as areas where the municipal corporations chose to dump waste. Just dumped it into a swamp. And that's a tradition throughout the Caribbean and a lot of the third world, where we chose our swamps. We did not understand the swamp environment and how productive it was, and we chose those environments to dump our waste.
But we are now one of the richest countries in the Caribbean. We're oil rich. Surely we shouldn't be at that stage, because if those toxins, if you say it's not lined, environmentalists say that toxins going into the actual landfill then go into our water table, go into our soil, and it affects the food we eat and the water we drink, and it could affect our health.
I unfortunately, for what you're stating, it is very, it sounds sensational. But unfortunately, we just did 2 studies on Guanapo and Beetham to do with the impact on surface and groundwater. What we have found is, in most cases, the one impact we were looking for is like pesticides or heavy metals, things like mercury, chromium, etc. The levels of these items were insignificant. They were very small. And as a matter of fact, in the 1979 study that was done on the Beetham landfill to determine if there were heavy metal contamination of groundwater, it was found that the baseline study done away from the Beetham landfill in the Caroni swamp showed up mercury, which did not show up in the Beetham study. And as a result of that, and this was done taken to a lab in Canada to be studied at that time, what we have found is there's more heavy metal coming out of the Caroni River system in terms of the industries in the Caroni River system than what actually goes into the landfills. You must remember that our landfills do not collect hazardous waste. They're not hazardous waste landfills.
Okay.
They're residential type landfills.